Welcome back. We are remembering the life of one of baseball's greatest players of all time. Hall of Famer Willie Mays passed away at the age of 93 on Tuesday. After 22 years in the majors, Mays, known as the Say Hey Kid, solidified himself as perhaps the greatest all-around player in the history of the game. The 24-time All-Star ended his historic career with a .301 batting average. He had more than 3,200 hits, 660 home runs, and more than 1,900 RBIs, putting him in the highest echelons of Major League players. Mays played on 4 pennant-winning teams, but won just one World Series, and that was in 1954 with the New York Giants, where he made this famous catch, considered one of the greatest defensive plays of all time. Back in 2015, then-President Barack Obama awarded Mays the Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor, and he addressed Mays' impact as part of the first generation of players from the Negro Leagues to make it into the majors.
A few years ago, Willie rode with me on Air Force One. I told him then what I'll tell all of you now. It's because of giants like Willie that someone like me could even think about running for president.
Joining us now is Evan Roberts, on-air host for WFAN Sports Radio. He's also the author of My Mets Bible, scoring 30 years of baseball fandom. Evan, wow, Mays, such an incredible person. What a life, what a player. What does his legacy mean for baseball and this country?
I know for my generation, when my dad and my grandfather were teaching me about baseball, it always started with Willie Mays. That's where it always began. My grandfather would tell me, greatest player I've ever seen. My dad would tell me, greatest player I've ever seen. And then as a kid growing up, wanting to learn about baseball, it was always fascinating to read about him. And not only what he accomplished on the field, everything he had to deal with off the field, and the legacy that he put together as one of the greatest of all time. And you played that clip of that catch in the '54 World Series. And not only was it an incredible play, but Willie Mays, as he's making the play, was thinking about how I got to get the ball in very quickly because Larry Doby's on second base, and there's a chance he'll tag up and score from second. So not only is this guy making the most clutch, incredible catch you'll ever see, his mind was working, and he was a smart baseball player. And he was a great baseball player.
Yeah, not only did he make that catch, but he then made an incredible throw after making that catch.
Yes.
That was pivotal in that game. Well, the New York Times called Mays a national treasure. They called him electrifying. Last night, Mets announcer and former player Keith Hernandez got kind of choked up when talking about Mays on SNY. Let's listen.
What always came off was, and he was the Say Hey Kid. He had that ebullient personality, infectious and genuine. And I got to tell him that he was the greatest player I ever saw.
Wow. Evan, what do you think made him just so special, so unique?
I think that his ability to be great at everything. You know, sometimes you watch baseball and there's a guy who's a great slugger, and he's not great defensively. And you see a guy who's really fast, but he's not good at another aspect of baseball. Willie Mays is the true, he's great at everything. He could run, he could field, he could hit for power, he could hit for batting average. It's funny, I'm a geek, so I've looked back at this. If you go back to some of the years where he didn't win the MVP, and we judge them on the stats we look at today, he would have won many more. So I think that in a way he's become underrated because he probably would have won 5 or 6 MVPs if you look back at some of the accomplishments he put together. And one other thing about him is, remember, he's a New York legend. The Giants moved to San Francisco. And one thing I'd read about, it shocked me to hear this, is that he wasn't fully accepted in San Francisco, that the crowds would boo him because, hey, he's great, but he's not Joe DiMaggio, who is the hometown kid that they would try to compare him to. So not only is he this great player, he had to deal for years in his career of a bigger ballpark where home runs went to die, and a crowd that didn't fully accept him. Now, eventually they did. He's a San Francisco legend, but it's kind of forgotten about that he had to deal with that in the first few years of playing in San Francisco. And you look at the end of the day, from my money, studying baseball history, learning about it, asking questions, he's the greatest of all time.
It's always amazing to learn and think about the adversity some of these greats have faced. And Mays overcame so much adversity when you think about the time that was when he played. We mentioned he was the first generation of players who made their way from the Negro Leagues to the majors. Quickly, if you will, how significant do you think was his impact during that transition?
I mean, incredibly significant. You know, Jackie Robinson is a legend. He's a hero, and he went through a lot. So did Willie Mays. So did every other young black player as this time of integration occurred in Major League Baseball. It wasn't easy. Like right now, you're an athlete, you deal with social media. He was dealing with so much more and obviously came through. And not only that, like when he began his Major League career, I think he began his career like 1 for 21. So it wasn't exactly the smoothest transition ever. And then he blossomed into one of the great players of all time. And like, you see that number 24? There are generations who wear that number. I would argue that outside of maybe Michael Jordan, who's affected the next generation, that number is probably the most kind of imitated number in sports. Now you still see people wearing 24, and it all started for the great Willie Mays.
Evan Roberts, it's great to take that walk down history lane with you and honor such an incredible athlete in person, Willie Mays. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.